Sinamoto.
Yay, we're moving. I wanted to talk about one other adjustment I did to the bike. I can't show it to you, but I can talk about it. Again, because with such tight spaces to put your hand and tools in, there's no way I'm going to try to put a camera in that same spot with my hand and a flashlight and a hammer. Kind of doesn't work. Plus, I just can't sit in one position that long and maintain everything. But before I do that, I wanted to comment on the good conversations at CTX700forum.com. I'm following several discussions on that forum, and they're very interesting. Of course, it's all about the bike. New members coming on. Some people have problems that they need to get fixed, asking for help or guidance of some kind. And people who just want to understand the bike better. And that was me to some extent, because I wanted to understand more about how the DCT works. Not minute details, but just conceptually, you know, a block diagram. I don't need the whole circuit, just a block diagram to understand what's going on. So there's some good discussions on that. A lot of learning to do, and it makes you think, and I have no problem with being forced to think. I do like coming to a solution, though. I like to get something from all that thinking. This is the first time I'm using the headset in my new helmet. I bought another XGP Bluetooth communicator, and it connects to the GoPro 12. So I don't need an external microphone. Although external microphones seem to be better in quality than this. But it is what it is. The adjustment I did about 2 weeks ago now was I reduced the preload on the rear shock. After looking at things on the forum, a discussion of some people say that the bike might have too stiff a suspension or whatever. And I looked at some videos that didn't apply to this bike, but to, you know, to rear shocks in general. And I came to the conclusion that maybe my preload was a little bit too stiff. And one reason I came to that decision was while standing over the bike, not even on it, just to the side of it, and pushing down on the seat to see how much give there was in the rear. There wasn't much at all. Now when I sat on the bike, there was some sag. But I'm one of those people who I didn't feel like getting a tape measure and marking the wall and see what the sag was. Because there is just watching traffic here, there is a method for doing all that. To be more precise, you do need measurements, and you're supposed to balance the rear and the front suspension. Well, guess what? The front suspension isn't adjustable at all. I suppose you can put in some of those spacers to increase the preload, but there's no damping or preload adjustments readily made on the front suspension, which is the forks. Right, are we going to wait for me? So if I want to try to match the front and rear suspension, the front is not adjustable. And officially, according to Honda, neither is the rear. But again, I saw a few videos on YouTube that say you can adjust slightly the rear suspension, and only the preload. There's no damping or rebound or any of that. to do. So I did go and I bought a 12-inch punch. It's not made of brass, it's stainless steel. And I was able to loosen the top nut on the shock. I'm going to try to insert some close-ups so at least you can see what I'm talking about. The best way to show this is to really get down here and let you look at how I had to position myself to get access to the nuts on the top of the rear shock. I have the 12-inch long punch, and the tip is 3/16 inch diameter. If you go too big, it may be a sloppy fit for the notches on the nuts, and you may have a difficulty doing that, and any medium-sized hammer. So I would just, if I don't kick the camera, position and tap. Position and tap. The secret to this is you have to be patient because there may be dirt keeping those nuts from moving smoothly. I had to spray with WD-40 to help loosen them a bit, and that did help. And you don't want to bang the hammer. You don't want to bang it because you don't want to hurt the nuts on the top. I will get you a better look inside. But persistence and patience is the key here. It goes a little bit at a time. You have to go counterclockwise on the top nut to loosen the bottom nut, to make room for it to move. And it's up to you if you want to increase or decrease the preload. And the preload adjustment is the lower nut. So this is the position. It took me a while. I'm not comfortable laying on the garage floor, even with a carpet underneath me. And I do have a flashlight in here because otherwise you see nothing. So I position the flashlight. Persistence and patience is the way to do it. Now I'll get you a better look inside. This is a closer look at the adjustment nuts on the top of the rear shock. Of course, you can see the big coil, the big spring that actually does the bouncing around. And inside the coil spring is a damper, but there's no adjustments for the damper. All you can do is adjust the two nuts. The further downward the nuts go, the more preload, and it becomes stiffer. I knocked it upward about between a third and a half a turn, and then closed the top nut again. Just don't bang so hard that you can damage the nuts. You have to be patient and easygoing and persistent. You may find you have to apply some increased force now and then, but just don't go nuts with it. And if you're patient, it'll work. It'll work for you. Now, this is the boring stuff. I think it's better to get back to the riding footage. So after loosening the top nut, I had to use WD-40 to get that to move smoothly. I did reduce the preload. I'd say not even a quarter of a turn, maybe an eighth of a turn, because I had no experience. I didn't know which way to go with it. So an eighth of a turn, then I tightened them back down and went out for a ride, and I could detect a difference. There was a difference. Nothing big, but it was like, okay, there was a little bit more sag when I sit on it. And if I push on the bike, it responds. So I thought, okay, stay that way for about a week. Then I went back and reduced it even more. We got people wanting to be on my road. It's my road. So I did. I went in and reduced the preload about another quarter of a turn or a little less. So total, I probably have reduced the preload by about a third of a turn on that lower nut, not even a full half turn. I would say about a third of a turn. So you don't have to go too far on that nut to make a difference. And that's where I kept it. I do detect there's an improvement. It's not drastic. Don't look for some kind of miracle here. But when I straddle the bike and I sit on it and stand and then sit and stand and sit and stand, the bike seems to move in a level plane. Whereas before, if I did that, it would seem to tilt forward to the forks, which indicated to me that the rear end was a little bit too stiff. So that's why I did all that. The hardest part is making the adjustment, because you have to be in a weird position. You can't see. You got to put your hands in there. You got to put a small flashlight in there. You got to tap with the hammer. You don't want to kill it. But I do like the way it behaves now. Can you imagine having a bike where everything is adjustable? I'd be going nuts. So bottom line is, the rear shock, you can adjust the preload. I didn't do it in a very scientific manner. Since you can't adjust the forks, I didn't feel the need to be so scientific about it. Bottom line is, the only thing I can do is to adjust the preload on the rear. So that's what I did. And I just adjusted it to see if it was better or worse. And I like it a little bit better. Can you go slower? Sitting at a red light with the camera facing me. I don't even know if the audio works. This could be a waste. Oh, this traffic sitting in front. It's 11 o'clock. It's not lunchtime yet. I don't know what people are crowding out the streets for. I don't feel like talking when I'm going 3 miles an hour. And all these people are going to go straight. Oh, this is going to be a shit ride. Stop sign, stop light, stop sign, stop light. Everybody gets to go except my lane. It's 11 o'clock and people are at the restaurant. What's wrong with you? No, I can't see. Oh, fuck.